I am the Highland scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. Come closer, closer still. You see, the fire's warm, but this tale tonight, this tale runs wild. Now, when I was but a child, my grandfather had a certain way about him. He was quiet but firm, and everything was for a laugh. He had eyes that looked beyond what was seen, and we lived just across the road from one another. So I visited them every day, without fail. If I'd come by first thing in the morning, or say later on in the evening when the door was locked, I'd knock like I always did. 1, 2, just a light chap, and he'd come to the porch and he'd pull the curtain aside and just look to see who it was, never opening the door straight away. Instead, he would knock back once. Then came the same call every time, always a little weary and sometimes a little theatrical. "Is that you, Cheryl?" he would say. And of course, I would answer yes. And sometimes, because it aggravated me, it would be like, ugh, and I wouldn't answer. But if I didn't answer clearly and loud, he wouldn't open the door. He would just go and sit back down and let the moment pass as though nothing had happened. And then we would start the whole thing over again. I would have to knock, he would do the same thing. And as a young girl, I just thought he was being stubborn or playing some daft trick just to aggravate me. But when I got older, he eventually sat me down and told me the truth behind why we do this. The rule, should I say, that it wasn't his, but a much older rule, passed down by blood and story from long before doors had locks, when our people lived in wagons and bough camps, and the world between this and the other wasn't so sealed off and tight. He told me about a man called Mackie Stewart, one of the first in our line to forget this. Now you see, Mackie Stewart was born beneath the humming heat of a Highland summer in 1458, where the earth was carved raw by quarrymen, and wolves still answered the moon. He was the firstborn of several other children, born under a hawthorn sky near the foot of Ben Avon, where the land remembers blood, and the stones still murmured in old tongues. Now the Stuarts were travellers, rootless by choice, tied not to the land but to the lore, and they camped where the grass was soft and traded where the villagers were kind and kept to the customs of the threshold, the sacred spaces between the wild and the hearth. Now, you see, in those times, life could be a crooked thing. Nobles waged quiet wars over names, plagues. Well, they rode through the glens, and roads meant for feet were filled with eyes that didn't blink. Yet the travellers endured, passing down what mattered. Songs, signs, stories, carved out of warnings. One rule, above all others, remained unbroken. If someone knocks twice on your bough tent, or now at your door, without calling in, dinna answer it without knocking back. Then you must say these words: "This house holds none but kin. If the knocking continued after that, you buried salt and rosemary at the threshold before first light. You see, it was never questioned, never mocked. Not until Mackie. That September, when the rowan trees had began weeping red and the blackthorn curled back upon itself like claws, the Stuart clan camped in a hollow vale near Drumdrarin, a place where the stones sing and nae dogs bark. See, that night the winds came in, called, carrying the kind o' silence that hurts your ears. The fire was sputtering o'er the place, and the horses, well, they began to grow restless. And then came the chap. 2 clean knocks on the canvas flap. Mackie just looked at his brother. No voice followed. His younger brother, Liam, he looked up sharply. How did they no answer? They didna say wha they were when they knocked. But Mackie, he just flushed fae drinking pride. Oh, he laughed. Ugh, a fox could knock louder than none. He rose and he went to the flap. He did not knock back. He did not say the words. He simply opened the flap. What stood there? Well, it wasn't a kin, and that was for sure. It wasn't anything born fae a womb or shaped by a man. It was low, black, hunched like it carried the sky upon its back, with a jaw too long and hands that were too wide, eyes like the pit o' winter. It didna speak. It simply grinned. After that night, Mackie began changing. His laughter soon dulled. His eyes grew red around the edges. And he was always searching. He'd step into some place and he was always looking in the darkest corners. The elders said he'd been marked for sure. Some said he'd left a door open that couldn't be shut. He stopped speaking names. He wouldn't eat unless the food was salted at least 3 times. He began muttering incoherent words in his sleep. Words that even a cra couldn't understand or refuse to mimic. On the 7th night, the tent flap was found shredded, but not opened, but had been torn from the inside out. And Mackie was gone. Only his boots remained, standing upright, filled with damp feathers and something that looked like moss but smelled like meat. Not one soul followed. No one searched. They packed up their camp before the sun could rise, and they buried Rosemary in a circle where his tent had stood. Now you see, this story passed through the bloodline like a ghost. It's been whispered beneath every fire. And that's why, to this very day, when you hear a knock twice, without a name coming ahint it, don't open the door. No, unless you've knocked back once and they've replied. But I always say this: this house holds none but kin. And then, if it simply knocks again, you dinna ask who it is. You salt the earth. You wait for dawn. because what came for Mackie could still be walking this earth. And let's face it never learned how to leave once it was let in. I am the Highland Scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. And until the candle lights again, sleep tight, wanderers.